Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of The Suited Shootist, and I'm going to just jump right into it this week because I had a very insightful conversation with a guy, and I wanted to dig into it a little bit. One of the groups that I kind of play in Facebook, there was a guy who had posted up, he was looking for some feedback on trying to improve his bill drill, and for those of you unfamiliar, a bill drill is at 7 yards, draw and fire 6 rounds, traditionally to the A zone of a USPSA target, although it's kind of also been accepted that you can use the 8-inch circle of an IDPA target as well as a loose facsimile. It's not technically the same, but nobody is really going to give you too much of a hard time if you use one versus the other. And the fact that he was trying to improve his bill drill wasn't really noteworthy because, that's one of the sort of main diagnostics that people use to evaluate their progress. It shows a lot of relevant things: draw to first hit, recoil control, and consistency. Obviously, all those are very critical elements. How he structured the question is what caught my attention, because he said that what he was trying to achieve was a 2-second bill drill, and effectively something to the effect that, well, that's the standard. And that's what piqued my interest, because I took the opportunity to sort of inquire as to how he came to that conclusion, because 2-second bill drill is some very high level shooting. Just for a little bit of context, you've got Gabe White, for example, who, one of his major claims to fame is the fact that he made, I believe, Grandmaster in USPSA, shooting from concealment with his everyday carry gear. And that's definitely a feat of technical shooting that not a lot of people achieve. So in Gabe White's class, he has his standards for a pin. And you have the dark pin, the light pin, and the top level is a turbo pin. And a 2-second bill drill is turbo pin level shooting. And so, you're talking upper echelons of what's possible with a pistol. Not saying that you can't go faster, but that's up there. And so I inquired, how did you come to your understanding or expectation that 2 seconds is the standard? And he had made a comment of, I had heard Bill Wilson, say that that's just kind of the standard. I had done a little bit of cursory Googling, and on the Wilson Combat channel, the only video that I was able to quickly find where Bill was talking about his namesake drill, he said that anything faster than 3 seconds was solid performance for an experienced shooter. And, that wasn't in any kind of attempt to diminish what the guy was looking to accomplish. But again, I was curious as to what, in the course of his experience, planted the idea in his head that 2 seconds was the standard. And it was interesting because it was kind of twofold. One was that he was gearing up for some competition. And so, that makes sense. The 2-second bill drill is, again, that's high level shooting. So if you are going into competition, then it is a good diagnosis of a lot of relevant skills. But he had also made a comment about how he felt that the Tooler principle, the so-called 21-foot rule, was applicable to that as well. And he shared his thoughts on it. I shared mine. I honestly think I'm going to do that as its own independent video. And through no fault of his, it seemed like there was a bit of a misunderstanding as to the Tooler principle, at least as I understand it. So, but again, the guy had his goals. And that's really the important part, is it seems somewhere along the line, we've started using the word standards and goals interchangeably. And I'm kind of curious as to why. Because standards, carry a certain expectation to them. And I think it's important that we explore that because, again, standards aren't necessarily consistent either. Excuse the background noise. We've got some foster puppies, and I can't always control exactly when they start messing with their chew toys. Anyways, getting back to it. For example, the standard for an FBI agent to pass their pistol qualification is 70% or better. Okay? For a lot of folks, especially in the training space, that's not really impressive shooting. To be qualified to be an FBI firearms instructor, the standard is to pass that at 90% or better. Then you have the standards for the corresponding IDPA or USPSA ranks and tiers. You've got the standards for the dark light and turbo pins with Gabe White. You've got the standards for the fast from Todd Lewis Green. And that's kind of the point, is that standards are benchmarks. There's not a universal standard. And so it's important to kind of understand the difference between the two. I'm going to hold myself out as an example here. I'm gearing up to go shoot at Rogers Shooting School in November. And I have what I'm working on, and I have my own personal goals as to, what I'm looking to achieve when I get there. There are standards that need to be achieved for the various different rankings, again. And really just the point of all this is whatever standard you're holding yourself to is whatever standard you're holding yourself to. Just make sure that it logically aligns with what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Again, you going back to the gentleman in my initial example. On the competition side of things, absolutely. 2-second build drill, those are, if I'm not mistaken, like masterclass level types of shooting times. And so if dude's looking to try and make masterclass, yeah, that is absolutely a standard that he's looking to achieve. If he feels like that is a standard that needs to be achieved based on an interpretation of the Touted principle, that's why I'm going to do a video on that on its own, because there's some pushback on that. And quite frankly, it warrants its own video because there's a whole lot of misunderstanding around it anyways. So it was just a thought that occurred to me is like at some point we started using standards and goals interchangeably. And quite frankly, I think it's detrimental. Because, as I've said before, I see that sometimes setting these artificial barriers to entry for defensive carrying of firearms, and that's scaring some people off. So, certainly nothing wrong with having goals, certainly nothing wrong with having standards. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they aren't. But, the intentionality in the language, I think, is important. And also making sure that whatever your goals and whatever your standards are, making sure that they are relevant to your particular lifestyle. So, just something that I felt was worth touching on. I want to hear your thoughts about it down in the comments. So other than that, hope it has a fantastic week. Stay dangerous and stay sharp.